Okay, I want you to picture a physics experiment for a second.
Uh-oh.
You're in a lab, and you take two uh, unstable, high-energy atoms,
Hmm.
maybe from totally different elements,
Right.
and you just smash them together at an incredible speed.
Usually that ends in a mess, right? Or an explosion.
It can, but sometimes, in physics, you get fusion. You create an entirely new particle, something with its own unique energy source.
I feel like I should be wearing safety goggles for this intro, but knowing you, we are definitely not talking about nuclear physics today.
We are not. We're talking about dance.
Oh, okay.
Specifically, we're taking a look at the Naini Chen dance company. But that physics analogy,
Yeah.
that's exactly how this company has survived for almost 40 years. They don't just
Yeah.
preserve culture, they smash it together.
That's a really strong way to frame this. And for this deep dive, we're looking at a pretty amazing source. It's a very, very candid interview with Andy Chiang, who is the company's executive director.
Mm.
And you're right. On paper, it's a story about a dance troupe. But when you really get into it, it's a case study on innovation, on the immigrant experience, and just the literal sweat it takes to keep art alive.
And that's our mission today. We want to figure out how a company founded way back in 1988 managed to stay so relevant. I mean,
Yeah.
so many arts organizations just folded in that time.
It's a survival story for sure,
Yeah.
but it's really about refusing to just, stand still.
So let's set the scene. It's 1988. We're in the New York and New Jersey area. Who is at the center of this collision?
Well, it all revolves around the founder, Naini Chen.
Right.
She tragically passed away in an accident in 2021, but her influence is, it's the bedrock of everything. And to get the smash, you really have to understand who she was before America.
Okay.
She wasn't an amateur who just, liked to dance. She was a heavyweight.
How heavyweight are we talking?
She was a principal dancer with the Cloud Gate Dance Theater in Taiwan.
I've heard that name, but for someone who doesn't follow the global dance circuit, what does that mean? Is that like the local ballet?
No, think of Cloud Gate as like the Bolshoi or the Royal Ballet, but for contemporary Asian dance. It's the premier company. Extremely rigorous.
Wow.
So she comes from this background of touring 22 countries, absolute discipline, high prestige. She even performed on Broadway in the 70s and 80s, specifically during the King and I era.
Which, looking at the notes, brings up an interesting point. I'm guessing roles for Asian performers back then weren't exactly plentiful.
Limited is a very polite way to put it. It was incredibly scarce. You basically had the King and I and a few other sort of niche shows. So she's in this landscape, this elite talent, but she's kind of boxed in by the industry. She's trying to find her own voice in a place that only wants to hear one specific song from her, so to speak.
So how does she break out of that box?
The breakthrough moment comes at the La Mama Theater in New York. She gets invited to perform, and the New York Times shows up.
And back in the 80s, the Times review wasn't just a nice clip for the scrapbook or, a retweet.
No, it was currency. It was life or death for an artist in New York. If the Times liked you, you had a career. If they ignored you, you basically didn't exist.
Yeah.
They gave her a rave review.
Wow.
And suddenly, the phone just starts ringing. This is where the partnership kicks in. Her husband, Andy Chiang, sees this momentum. He'd just started his own business in Fort Lee, New Jersey, but they just decided to seize the moment.
And they launched the company.
Then and there.
Okay, so they have the talent, they have the momentum, but a lot of companies start with that and then fail. What was the vision that made them different? Because usually you see two paths, right? You either do traditional Chinese dance for festivals,
No.
or you go all in on American modern dance.
And that's the exact binary that Naini rejected. She realized really early on that she didn't want to be a museum piece. She didn't want to just repeat steps from 500 years ago exactly as they were written down. But she also didn't want to just dissolve into the American melting pot and lose her identity.
She wanted to fuse them.
She wanted to fuse her Chinese cultural DNA with the freedom she found in American modern dance.
Which brings us right back to that atomic smash. In the interview, Andy Chiang says something, really interesting about culture. He thinks trying to keep it pure is actually a death sentence.
He's very, very firm on this. He argues that if you just preserve tradition under glass, it dies. It stops being relevant. It has to be living.
And to live, it has to interact with its environment.
Exactly. He sees the immigrant experience not as assimilating, which kind of implies you disappear, but as contributing.
Contributing a new element to the whole reaction.
Precisely. He says immigrants bring vitality. They're the catalyst. When they clash with the existing culture, they generate that new particle we talked about.
So it's a rebuttal to this idea that immigrants just take from a society.
Totally. Andy's point is that they provide the friction that's necessary for culture to evolve.
That sounds great philosophically, and I think we can all get behind cultural evolution. But let's ground this. Because fusion in art can, well, it can be a mess sometimes.
Right.
It's just throwing two things together for the sake of it. Like fusion food that just doesn't work.
Yeah, the pizza with pineapple debate, but for dance, it can feel forced.
Exactly. So what's the best example from the company's history of this actually working?
The hip-hop lion.
I saw this in the notes and I had to stop. I know the traditional lion dance, the drums, the big costume, two people under it. It's very structured. It's ancient.
Right.
Mixing that with hip-hop just sounds like it should be a disaster.
It sounds like a gimmick, right? Can the lion do hip-hop? But Andy and Naini took it so seriously, they didn't just guess at the moves. They brought in actual legends of the genre.
Who are we talking about?
Rockefeller and Quickstep.
Wow. Okay, these are the people judging breaking at the Olympic level.
The real deal. Pioneers. And the physical reality of this is just, it's wild. Think about the mechanics. In a traditional lion dance, the person at the back, the tail, they just follow the head. It's grounded. You're bent over.
You're the back legs.
Right. But in breaking, you have beats that require explosive movement, floor work. So all of a sudden, the tail dancer has to launch themselves to the air, flying around while the head is bobbing to a beat.
So the dancer in the back is basically doing acrobatics while blind under a heavy costume.
Pretty much. It's
Yeah.
incredibly demanding. But here's the insight Andy shares. He said, surprisingly, it works perfectly.
Why?
Because spiritually, they're the same thing.
How so? One is ancient China. The other is the Bronx in the 70s.
They're both street energy. The lion dance wasn't performed in palaces for the emperor. It was done in villages, on the street, for the community.
Mm-hmm.
It was about warding off evil, bringing luck to regular people. Hip-hop is the same. It came from the street. They both have that raw, communal vitality.
So stylistically miles apart.
Miles.
Mm.
But the energy source, it's identical.
That's a fascinating way to look at it. It's not about the steps matching. It's about the intention matching.
And that opens up the door for who can perform it. The company is incredibly diverse. You've got black dancers, white dancers, Asian dancers, all working together.
Right.
And Andy tells the story about watching a black dancer perform traditional Mongolian steps.
And I'm guessing the critique from purists might be, oh, that's not authentic.
You'd think so, but Andy's reaction was the complete opposite. He said the technique was perfect, the steps were correct, but the flavor was unique to that dancer. And he realized this proves human expression is universal.
He flips the script on the usual gatekeeping.
He does. He makes the point. If Chinese dancers can come to New York and become principal dancers in the New York City Ballet, a strictly Western art form, and nobody questions that,
Then why can't non-Chinese dancers master Chinese forms?
why not? He's breaking down those cultural silos. He believes that if you put in the work, the culture belongs to you, no matter what your DNA is.
I want to pivot to Andy himself for a minute. We've been quoting him as the executive director of the Vision Guy, but looking at his bio, he's not a dancer.
Not even close. Andy Chiang is an MIT graduate, computer science.
So we have an MIT engineer running a modern dance company. Okay, that explains the physics metaphors.
It explains a lot, and it creates this incredible dynamic between the artist Naini and the organizer Andy. Andy calls himself a shadow artist.
Shadow artist, unpack that. Is that just a nice way of saying I pay the bills?
It's deeper than that. I mean, he did keep his tech career going to support the company, which is common, but he sees his role as building the infrastructure that lets the art happen. But here's the twist.
Okay.
That hip-hop lion dance idea, that wasn't the choreographer, that was Andy.
The engineer came up with the artistic breakthrough.
Yes, because he approached it with logic. He asked the what-if question. What if we combine X and Y? He didn't know the steps, but he knew the structure. He provided the framework, and then the artists filled it with movement.
That's a really validating point for anyone listening who works in ops or admin in a creative field. You're not just pushing paper.
No, you're designing the container for the creativity. Without the container, the water just spills everywhere. But Andy also has this very sober view of the art world. He doesn't romanticize it.
No. He tells what I'm calling the spaghetti story.
Hear it.
So Andy's working his tech job, making a good living, used to a certain level of comfort. And he comes to the studio and sees these elite dancers rehearsing 4, 5, 6 hours a day. They're sweating, they're exhausted. And then they go home, 4 people crammed into one room, and they eat cheap spaghetti just to survive.
Because the pay in dance, well, let's just say nobody gets into it for the stock options.
Right. And Andy was just struck by this. He calls it the happy business because their product is joy for the audience.
Yeah.
But the production of that joy is pure struggle.
That contrast must have been so jarring for him.
It humbled him. He realized that this level of passion, what he calls madness, is so rare. And that's why he dedicated himself to supporting it. He knew that without someone like him building the structure, that passion just burns out.
So let's talk about that structure. How does this company actually work? Because passion doesn't pay New York rent.
It's a grind. Andy is very open about it. The dancers are elite athletes. They need ballet, modern, and martial arts training. He mentions like 24 to 48 counts of fast movement. It's high-velocity stuff.
So they're training all day. How do they survive financially?
Side hustles, specifically fitness. Andy mentions SLT, which is this brutal Pilates workout, and Pure Barre. It turns out, if you're taking a high-end fitness class in New York, there's a pretty good chance your instructor is a world-class dancer just trying to fund their art.
That makes a lot of sense. They're experts at monetizing their own bodies.
Exactly. And on the company side, they don't cut corners. They use live music.
Yeah.
Andy talks about bringing in masters like Tang Liang Xing on the pipa.
The Chinese lute.
And Yang Yi on the guzheng. So you have expensive musicians, expensive rehearsal space, underpaid dancers. The math is really tough.
It's a constant fundraising battle. Galas, donors. A single rehearsal costs thousands. It's a miracle it's lasted this long.
Well, the biggest threat to that survival came in 2021.
Right, when Naini Chen passed away. And for a founder-led company, that is usually the end of the story. The visionary is gone, the company folds.
The founder's trap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they're navigating it. And they're doing it by doubling down on the mission, not just the person.
What does that look like? Are they just rerunning old tapes?
No, and that's the key. They aren't just replaying Naini's greatest hits, they're commissioning new works. Andy mentions a Dunhuang-style dance, which is based on ancient Buddhist cave art.
Okay.
Commissioned from a choreographer named Li Zongmai. And keeping with the fusion, a new Year of the Horse piece that mixes Mongolian moves with jazz music.
Jazz and Mongolian dance.
Yes.
Still smashing atoms.
Still smashing atoms. And Andy's role has shifted. For 30 years, his job was to execute Naini's vision. She wants this, I make it happen. Now he says his job is to be the storyteller, to articulate the why so that new choreographers can step in and interpret it.
He's the keeper of the flame, but he's letting others hold the torch.
That's a great way to put it.
There's one concept Andy mentioned near the end that really stuck with me. It was about the difference between an amateur and a professional. And I think it applies to way more than just dance. It's a mindset shift.
You mean the distinction between joy and service?
Yes, exactly.
This is one of those insights that just stops you in your tracks.
Yeah.
He says that for amateurs, people like us taking a salsa class on a Tuesday, dance is about personal joy. It's about freedom. It's for you.
Right. You do it because it feels good.
Totally valid. But for the professional, he says, it's about service.
It's a heavy word. Service.
It changes the whole focal point. The professional suffers, the sore muscles, the low pay, the spaghetti dinners, the sheer exhaustion so that the audience can feel the joy.
Wow. They are in service to the viewer's emotions. It reframes the artist not as a diva, but as a kind of public servant.
That connects right back to his view on immigrants, doesn't it?
It really does. It's all about contribution. The immigrant contributes a new flavor to the culture. The artist contributes emotion to the audience. It's this outward-facing mindset. It's not, look at me. It's, here is what I have for you.
It's a powerful legacy. And I think it explains why Andy, the computer scientist, stuck with it for so long. He sees the value of that service.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap this up, what's the takeaway for you, the listener, who might have two left feet? Why does the story of a dance company matter if you work in marketing or engineering or education?
I think it challenges us to look at the clashes in our own lives differently. We usually try to keep things in these neat little boxes. This is my work self. This is my creative self. This is traditional. That is modern.
Right. We think if we mix them, we'll just make a mess. But the data from this case study says otherwise. The Naini Chen company proves that if you approach that collision with curiosity, if you ask, can the lion do hip-hop, instead of should the lion do hip-hop, you create something vibrant.
You create a new energy source.
Exactly. You don't let your world become a museum.
Keep it living. Keep it moving. So here's the question for you to take with you today. What is your hip-hop lion dance? What are two disparate skills or hobbies or perspectives you have that you've been keeping separate? Maybe you're a coder who loves to knit or a lawyer who loves stand-up comedy. What would happen if you stopped protecting them from each other and just smashed them together?
You might just start a chain reaction.
You might indeed. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
Take care.